I never believed silence could sound so loud. But on that night, my house was filled with a quiet so sharp it felt like it could cut skin. Maybe because I already knew. Maybe because some part of me had known for weeks. My wife, Lena, had been working late, then working weekends, then exhausted and stressed, needing space. 100 tiny excuses that I had swallowed because I loved her, because I trusted her, because I thought trust meant closing your eyes and pretending not to see. But I saw everything, and yet nothing prepared me for the moment. I opened the front door and heard a sound that did not belong to me. A man's laugh, soft, confident, comfortable, inside my home, inside my marriage. I didn't freeze, I didn't scream, I didn't even breathe harder. Something inside me simply switched off, like a breaker thrown in a burning building. I stepped inside quietly, closing the door with a slow, calm certainty that felt wrong for the moment. But numbness can feel a lot like control. Lena's purse lay on the hallway table. Her shoes, carelessly dropped. A jacket I didn't recognize hung over the back of the chair. His. They didn't even try to hide it. I stood there for a moment, staring at the jacket like it could explain the last several months, like it could tell me why. Then I heard movement upstairs, voices, a whisper, a laugh, her laugh, the one she used to have only for me. The stairs creaked, soft footsteps, slow, unhurried. He wasn't sneaking. He wasn't scared. He wasn't worried about being caught because he believed, just like she believed, that I was blind, weak, predictable. They built a whole affair on that belief. The first thing I saw was his shadow sliding across the wall, tall, relaxed, like he owned the place. And then he appeared on the staircase, shirt unbuttoned, hair a mess. A smirk still lingering on his face from something she had just told him. He hadn't seen me yet. But I saw everything. The man who had been in my bed. The man who smelled like my wife. The man who walked inside my home like he belonged here. My hands didn't shake. Instead, something inside me settled, like dust after an explosion. He took another step down, still unaware, still smiling, still alive inside the illusion that this night was his. And as he reached the halfway point on the staircase, I finally spoke. I didn't shout. I didn't rage. My voice came out calm, dead calm. Enjoying yourself? The smirk died on his lips. The color drained from his face. And from upstairs, Lena gasped, like she had just seen a ghost. But I wasn't the ghost. I was the reckoning. For a moment, no one moved. The man, Evan, as I would soon learn, stood frozen halfway down the stairs, one hand on the banister, his eyes wide like a deer caught in headlights. The only sound in the house was Lena's sharp inhale upstairs, thin and trembling, as if air had suddenly turned to ice. I didn't look up at her yet. I kept my eyes on him. "You," he stuttered, voice cracking. I didn't know you were home," I finished. "Yes, I figured you didn't." His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. The confidence he arrived with had vanished. Good. I didn't need it contaminating the room anymore. Behind him, Lena finally appeared at the top of the staircase, wrapping my robe around herself, the same robe she used to steal from me on cold mornings. Her face was ghost white. Her lips trembled. Her eyes darted from me to Evan, like she was trying to calculate which of us was the bigger explosion about to go off. "Marcus," she whispered, my name sounding like a plea and an apology fighting for the same breath. "Let me explain." I lifted a hand. Calm. Controlled. A gesture that made her flinch anyway. "No," I said. "Not yet." Evan tried to speak again. but fear made his words collapse. This isn't what you think." I gave him a long, cold stare. Men say that phrase when they have nothing else left to defend themselves with. "It's exactly what I think," I replied softly. Silence again. Heavy. Suffocating. I stepped closer, not rushing, not threatening, just closing the distance with the composure of someone who had already processed the pain and moved past it into a different, darker clarity. Lena grabbed the railing at the top. "Marcus, please don't do anything stupid." I laughed. A short, humorless sound. Stupid? I looked up at her then, really looked, at the woman I had married, at the stranger wearing her skin. "You think I walked in here without thinking?" She flinched again. Evan took another breath, trying to reassemble the pieces of his bravado. "Look, man," he said carefully, palms raised as if approaching a wild animal. We didn't mean for this to happen. Things just got complicated." I tilted my head. "Complicated," I echoed. Lena stepped down one stair, voice trembling. "Marcus, please, Evan and I, we made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but we can talk about this. All of us." Calmly. I stared at her. "You want calm?" She nodded rapidly. "Good. Because calm was exactly what they should be afraid of." I reached into my jacket pocket. They both went rigid, fear tightening their bodies like strings pulled taut. But what I pulled out wasn't a weapon. It was my phone. I pressed one button. A video began playing. Audio clear, unmistakable. Their voices, their laughter, their whispers. Recorded from earlier that week when I'd followed them, unnoticed, to the little motel outside town. Lena's knees buckled. Evan's face drained to the color of ash. "You recorded us?" he choked out. "Of course," I said calmly. "I record everything now, especially lies." Lena covered her mouth, tears spilling. "Marcus, why? How long have you known?" I met her eyes. "Long enough to stop loving you," I said, "and long enough to plan everything that happens next." The fear in the hallway became something physical, thick, choking, unavoidable, and for the first time that night, they both understood this wasn't the beginning of a confrontation. It was the beginning of consequences. Evan stayed perfectly still on the staircase, like a man trying to decide whether to run or faint. Lena, trembling above him, looked like she wanted to jump between us, but couldn't trust her own legs. I let them sit in that silence a little longer. Let the weight of truth grind into their bones. "You want to know how long I've known?" I finally said. Neither of them spoke. Good. I didn't ask. "It started 3 months ago," I continued. "Little things. Lena's late nights at the studio. The sudden need for privacy. The way she guarded her phone like it had state secrets on it." Lena bit her lip so hard it bled. "Stop," she whispered. "No," I replied. "You owe me the courtesy of listening to the story you created." Evan shifted uneasily, trying to find an exit strategy without making sudden movements. "I thought I was being paranoid," I said, pacing slowly at the foot of the stairs. "I thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe I wasn't giving you enough attention, enough affection. Maybe—" My voice tightened for a moment. "Maybe the best years of us were behind us." Lena's tears dripped onto the wooden steps. "Marcus, please." I raised a hand again, and she went silent instantly. So I started looking. I tapped my temple. Not obsessively, logically. Patterns, behavior, timelines. Evan swallowed again. "You followed us," he murmured. "I did," I agreed. "After your car started showing up near Lena's yoga class twice a week. despite the fact that you don't even live on this side of town." His face twisted. He hadn't expected me to be that thorough. "I didn't want to believe it at first," I went on quietly. "But watching you two walk out of that motel together the first time..." A bitter smile pulled at my mouth. That was clarity. Lena covered her face. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for..." "You meant exactly what you did," I cut her off. "And that's fine. People fall out of love. People make choices. But you didn't just cheat." I looked up at her, letting her see every piece of my disgust. "You let me feel crazy for months while you treated our marriage like a safety net and treated him," I pointed at Evan, "like a vacation." Evan tried to find his voice again. "Look, man, I swear it wasn't about hurting you." "That," I said softly, "is the problem. You never even considered me. I wasn't part of your equation. My humiliation didn't factor in." He flinched. "And Lena," I said. "She knew exactly how to cover your tracks, how to make me doubt myself, how to play innocent in the mornings after you spent the night together at the Crescent Motel." Evan blinked rapidly. You were at the Crescent that night?" "Yes," I said. "In the parking lot, watching your silhouette in the window." Lena collapsed onto a step, shoulders shaking violently. "Marcus, I don't know what to say." "Good," I replied. "Silence suits you." For a moment, the house seemed to hold its breath. Then I told them the part that really made Lena crumble. "Do you know when I finally stopped loving you?" I asked her. She looked up, mascara running down her cheeks. "When?" she whispered. "The day you came home smelling like him," I said. "And you hugged me anyway." Evan turned his head away. Even he couldn't look at her. "That's when my heart shut off," I said. "Not out of anger, not out of revenge, out of mercy, for myself." The three of us stayed frozen in that terrible triangle. Me at the bottom of the stairs, Lena halfway down, Evan stuck between us, like the rotten hinge holding the door of their affair. Then I said the words that made both of them pale. "And now that my heart is empty," I slipped the phone back into my pocket. "I can start filling it with something else." Lena's voice cracked. "What? What does that mean?" I looked at her calmly. "It means," I said, "that tonight is the last night you ever lie to me." Evan finally gathered enough courage to descend the rest of the stairs. His movements were stiff, defensive, like a man approaching a wild animal he hoped wouldn't bite. I didn't move. I didn't need to. "Look, Marcus," he started, voice shaky but trying for level. "If you want to yell, go ahead. I deserve it. But if you're thinking of doing something stupid..." I cut in, calm as a surgeon. "I already did something stupid." He froze. "I trusted her," I said. Lena sobbed quietly behind him, but I didn't spare her a glance. I kept my eyes locked on Evan, the man who'd sat at my dinner table, laughed at my jokes, toasted to our anniversary, all while sleeping with my wife. "It's funny," I said softly, "how easily betrayal hides in plain sight." Evan tried to stand taller. "We didn't mean for this to happen." "That," I replied, "is the anthem of cowards." He winced. "I'm serious," he insisted. "Nobody planned anything. It was complicated." "No," I said. "Complicated as taxes. This was simple. You saw an opening. She opened the door wider, and the two of you walked right through it without looking back." Lena's breath hitched like she'd been slapped. "Marcus, please. I know what I did was unforgivable, but stop." My voice was low, but it carried enough weight to make her instantly fall silent. It's too late to negotiate the shape of guilt. I finally turned my head toward her. You know what the worst part of this is? I asked. She hesitated, then whispered, What? You didn't even cheat for something real, I said. Not passion, not love, just escape, just ego, just novelty. Lena's face crumpled. I swear, I didn't want to lose you, but you didn't want to lose him either, I said. And that's the truth you never thought I'd say out loud. Evan stepped forward slightly, as if to shield her. Look, he said, palms out. If you want to talk this out, we can. Just don't do anything drastic. I gave him a thin, humorless smile. Drastic? Evan? If I wanted drastic, you wouldn't still be standing. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. Then what do you want? Closure, I said, and clarity. I reached into my coat pocket. Evan tensed like he expected a weapon, but instead I pulled out a small black folder and let it fall open on the living room table. Lena gasped when she saw what was inside. Evan whispered, Jesus. Photos, dates, screenshots of messages, reservation receipts, phone logs, GPS pings, every secret they thought they'd buried. I've spent the last 2 months watching the two of you unravel my life, I said quietly. So I decided to unravel yours, methodically, cleanly, without anger. Lena crawled down a step, reaching toward the table with trembling fingers. You followed us? No, I corrected. I documented you. Evan flipped through the folder, his face draining of color. You have everything, he muttered. Yes, I said. Everything except shame. That part, you'll have to supply yourselves. He looked up, fear finally surfacing in his eyes. What are you going to do with this? I stepped closer, just enough that he felt the pressure of my presence. What I'm going to do, I said, is ensure that you both understand one simple fact. Your choices have consequences. Lena whispered. Marcus, please, I'm begging you, don't ruin our lives. I paused. Lena, I said softly, you already ruined mine. Another silence, cold, heavy, electric. Then I delivered the real blow. By the way, I said, turning slightly, this house? My name is the only one on the deed. I'll need you both out by tomorrow. Lena's scream tore out of her throat. What? You can't do that. I can, I said. And I have. Evan looked stunned. Where is she supposed to go? To the man she ruined everything for, I said. Unless, I tilted my head, you weren't planning on taking her in? Evan's heart dropped into his shoes. A guilt affair is one thing. A real relationship is another beast entirely. His silence answered for him. Lena covered her mouth, shaking in disbelief. You're throwing me out on the street? She whispered. No, I said. I'm throwing you out of the lie you built. She sobbed, collapsing onto the floor. Evan didn't touch her. He couldn't. He didn't know how to handle a disaster he'd helped create, but never prepared for. And tomorrow, I added, you'll both learn what the consequences really are. Evan stared at me. What does that mean? It means, I said, opening the door and gesturing for him to leave, that tonight was mercy. I didn't shout. I didn't threaten. I just let him see in my eyes that this story was nowhere near over. And the next act wouldn't be kind. Evan hesitated at the doorway like a man facing a cliff's edge. He looked at Lena, crumpled on the floor, crying into her hands, and then at me. And for a moment I saw the truth flicker across his face. He regretted everything. Not because he loved her, not because he cared, but because he finally understood what he was up against. Go, I said quietly. Evan swallowed, stepped outside, and the door closed behind him with a soft, final click. It was almost gentle, almost tender, but it sent a shock wave through the whole house. Lena flinched at the sound as if it were a gunshot. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice raw and cracked, "please don't do this. Please don't throw me away." I walked past her, taking my time, letting silence fill the space she once occupied in my life. "You already threw us away," I said. "I'm just cleaning up the debris." She scrambled to follow me on her knees. "I made a mistake." "Repeat that line all you want," I said. "It won't make it smaller." "I wasn't thinking." "No, you were thinking very clearly. You just weren't thinking about me." She tried to grab the leg of my chair as I sat down, but her hand slipped. Her desperation was a physical thing, thick, sour, suffocating. "Marcus, please, we can fix this." "No," I said, "we can't." She froze. I leaned back, studying her with the kind of distance people reserve for strangers. "Sit," I said. She did. Cross-legged on the floor, eyes red, breathing uneven. "Do you know why this is happening?" I asked. "Yes," she whispered immediately. "Because I hurt you. Because I betrayed—" "No," I cut in. "This is happening because I tolerated too much for too long." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "You mistook my loyalty for blindness," I continued. "My kindness for weakness. My silence for stupidity." Tears ran down her cheeks. "I was a fool," she said. "I know that now." "You're not a fool," I replied. "You're selfish. And selfish people only understand boundaries after they've collided with them." She pressed her palms together. What are you going to do to me?" A good question. One she should have asked months ago, before hotel rooms, before secret messages, before lies woven into our everyday routines. "Legally," I said. "Nothing." She blinked, confused. "I'm not filing anything, not yet. I want you to feel exactly what you made me feel." She trembled. "Insecurity," I said. "Uncertainty. Fear. That buzzing under your skin when you know the floor can collapse under your feet at any moment." Her voice broke. "That's cruel." "No," I replied. "Cruel is inviting a man into my home, into my family's rhythm, into our routine, while pretending nothing was wrong." Her lips quivered. "Marcus, I didn't invite him to replace you. That's exactly what you did." Silence. Heavy. Accusatory. I stood up and walked to the cabinet near the window, pulling out a bottle of water. I handed it to her without emotion. She took it like it was a peace offering. "It's not forgiveness," I said. "It's hydration." She almost sobbed again. "Tomorrow," I continued, "you'll pack your things. Marcus, you'll go stay with a friend, or your sister, or him." I shrugged. "Your life? Your choice?" She stared up at me as if the world were ending. "Is there really no way back?" she asked faintly. I thought about it. Actually thought. About the years. The memories. The routine we built. The quiet mornings. The shared jokes. The comfort of familiarity. And then I thought about the deception. The disrespect. The cowardice. The way she looked at him. Soft. Secretive. Hungry. "No," I said. "There isn't." She covered her mouth to muffle a cry. And then I delivered the line that truly broke her. "You don't get to come home to a man you betrayed and ask him to rebuild what you burned." She collapsed forward, forehead touching the carpet, shoulders shaking violently. But I wasn't done. "Tonight," I said, "you'll sleep in the guest room." She looked up, confused by the softness of the instruction. "I'm not heartless," I explained. "I'm just done." She nodded weakly. And tomorrow, I said, when you leave this house, you leave behind the version of me who tolerated being taken for granted. A beat. And you leave behind the version of you who thought consequences were optional. Her tears soaked into the carpet. I opened the front door, not for Evan, not for drama, but for air. Fresh, cold, cleansing. Behind me, Lena whispered, "Marcus, please don't end us." I didn't turn around. It ended, I said, the moment he walked out of our bedroom. The silence that followed was absolute. I stepped outside and closed the door. Behind me, her world began to fall apart. Ahead of me, mine finally began to breathe. I didn't go far, just to the edge of the porch, where the cold air settled on my skin like a quiet warning. Inside the house, behind the closed door, I heard nothing. Not crying, not pleading, just silence. The silence of someone realizing they have finally run out of chances. I sat on the porch steps and let the night wash over me. For the first time in a long time, my heartbeat didn't feel like a burden. I don't know how long I stayed there. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe an hour. Time warps when your life is dividing into before and after. Eventually, I went back inside. The house felt different, lighter, still painful, but clean, in a way grief sometimes cleans you. Lena wasn't in the living room, not in the kitchen, not pacing, not screaming, not bargaining. She was sitting in the dark of the guest room, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the wall as if the world had snapped behind her eyes. She turned her head when I appeared, her voice barely audible. "Marcus, do you hate me?" I leaned against the doorframe. "I don't," I said, "but I don't trust you, and that's worse." A sound escaped her. Not quite a sob, not quite a breath. More like a person's insides folding in on themselves. "You meant everything to me," she whispered. "Then you should have acted like it." Her face crumpled, but she didn't cry loudly anymore. The raw panic from earlier was gone. In its place was something heavier. Acceptance. "I'll leave in the morning," she said quietly. "Just tell me one thing before I go." I stepped closer, stopping a few feet from her. "Why didn't you fight for us earlier?" she asked. "Before it got this far? Before I made the stupidest mistake of my life?" I didn't answer right away, because the truth wasn't something that needed shouting. It only needed space. "I was fighting," I said. "You just weren't looking." Her lips parted. Tears gathered in the corners of her eyes again, but they stayed there. She was drained dry of pleas. "Do you still love me?" she whispered. That question landed like a stone, not because I didn't know the answer, but because I did. "I loved us," I said softly. "And I loved the woman you were. But the woman who walked into that bedroom, I don't know her." Her chin quivered, but she didn't break. "Not this time." "Then, is this goodbye?" she asked. I took a slow breath. "It's the end of what we were," I said. "What we become now, that's something time will decide. Not you, not me." She nodded, wiped her face, and whispered, "I'm sorry." "I know." She stood. Her legs shook, but she didn't fall. She walked past me, through the hallway, into the master bedroom, just to take her pillow. Not clothes, not jewelry, not her favorite perfume, just the pillow she'd slept on beside me for years. That small, quiet detail hurt more than her earlier screams. She stopped at the front door, looking at the house like it was a memory fading before her eyes. "Marcus," she said. I waited. "Thank you for being a better man than I ever deserved." And then she stepped outside. This time I didn't follow. I didn't watch from the window. I didn't run after her. The door closed behind her with the softest click. A sound so gentle, yet so final it felt like the universe acknowledging the end. I exhaled, deep, long, painful, but honest. The house was quiet, still mine again. And in the center of the living room, surrounded by the dim glow of a single lamp, I finally said the words I had been afraid to admit. It's over. Not with anger. Not with bitterness. Just truth. The kind that frees you, even when it breaks you. I sat down, leaned back, and let the quiet settle into my bones. Tomorrow would be chaos, paperwork, phone calls, conversations I didn't want to have. But tonight, the world finally stopped spinning. Tonight I reclaimed my life, and somewhere out there, walking into the darkness alone, Lena finally understood the cost of losing me. The door had closed behind her. And for the first time in months, I didn't want it to open again.